Hello and welcome to Comic Island. My name is Arden, and this is my review of DC Rebirth's first year, my thoughts on Marvel Legacy, and my preview of the Doomsday Clock. So viewers, we've just about passed that 1 year mark for DC Rebirth, and looking back, it's been a wild ride. When the pseudo reboot was first announced, I was skeptical to say the least, and you can hardly blame me after the slow decline and problematic run of the New 52. Yet I was proven wrong in the best possible way. Rebirth wasn't only good for DC, it was great in general, and a solid step forward for the entire comic book industry. Sales are up and have held solid ground even over a whole year. Some comic book shops are even reporting that sales are only increasing for titles like Superman. That's incredibly rare in comics, as sales almost always decline over time. But no, DC is actually building momentum, and a fan base has proven loyal and consistently interested in the solid comics being put out by the company these days. The quality control of these issues are remarkable. I get the impression that the writers and artists are given a lot more freedom compared to the days of the New 52 era, and that shows. Even if you don't like every comic in Rebirth, and most people I talk to haven't liked every single series they've come across, it really comes down to personal taste rather than any one series being all that bad. There's a great range of comics in the Rebirth line at this point. The main titles are great. We're in the midst of one of the best Superman runs ever, if you ask me. Meanwhile, Tom King is doing solid work with the Batman series. And in general, the main superhero comics are firing on all cylinders and doing a great job. Justice League has kind of lost its way in Rebirth, but it's not bad. It's just kind of gotten to a little bit of a clutter. There's also more niche titles like Deathstroke, Red Hood and the Outlaws, and Titans, which are not maybe for everyone, but have found a loyal audience and all have their own unique appeal to them. Plus, and this is kind of the best part, with all the success, DC has been able to do a lot of fun stuff, with more experimental tones to them. They've been doing a lot of amusing crossover issues and just weird content with both Looney Tunes and Hanna-Barbera. And they've done really creative stuff too, like the Kamandi Challenge, which was just cool in its design and execution. Looking over the past year of comics and comparing things to where they were in the New 52 in its first year, the differences are getting really stark. Fans by and large are pleased and eager for more content coming out of DC. Writers and artists seem to be happy with the changes made overall. And broadly speaking, the retailers are really having positive opinions about the higher sales and increased accessibility of the Rebirth comics. None of this is perfect. I know the artist for Teen Titans left the series after issue 1, not every retailer has had equal success with Rebirth, and not every fan is pleased, but overall, the mood and atmosphere within the entire industry is really positive right now. It's also worth mentioning that their work with crossovers, which has been there but has been limited, easy to follow, really well put together, and overall has been handled extremely admirably, that's worth mentioning too. That's a serious improvement from the way things are being handled within the New 52 and definitely over at Marvel. So yes, we have lost some creative talent, and we shouldn't declare Rebirth as perfect or above criticism. There is a potential for decline here, but by and large, this was a great leap forward for the comic line of DC, and as I said it would 10 months ago, it has forced Marvel to do the same and has announced that they're going to revitalize themselves in an effort to catch up with the upcoming Legacy comics. So yeah, Marvel's finally gotten the message, and tail between their legs they have come around to the idea of basically doing what DC is doing with Rebirth. Of course, being Marvel, they can't admit that, but it's so obvious they're trying to be like DC, there's no reasonable alternative explanation for Legacy. Will it be a similar revival for Marvel the same way Rebirth was for DC? Time will tell, though I note their presumptive claim that Legacy will be changing the comic book industry is an absolute joke. No Marvel, DC changed the comic book industry. You're just trying to stay relevant. Still, if it's going to steal, hopefully they will take the best parts of Rebirth, and honestly it's hard to object to that. But based on what I've seen so far, well, I'm not entirely sure Marvel has taken all the correct lessons from Rebirth's success. Going back to normal was never the solution for either company. Not exactly. Rebirth did bring back some good characters and concepts from pre-New 52 era, and they're going to do a lot more of that, but even then, they didn't bring back those characters unchanged or without consequence. If Marvel thinks all they need to do is reset the numbering one more time and bringing things back to a more recognizable roster of heroes, I worry that's not going to be enough to get them out of their current stagnation problem. They need to work with creators, have a strong direction for what they want to take things from here, and stop chasing their tail when it comes to Inhumans and publishing their favorite movie characters. They gotta start pushing forward, even if it is a cauldron for new ideas for the movies and TV shows. We need more stuff like what they did with Superman in Marvel for this to work. So we'll see where things go from there. While the future of Marvel is unclear, DC has a bit more of a solid direction going forward. We're right around the corner to their next event, DC Metal. Written by Scott Snyder with Greg Capullo teaming up with him once again for art duties, this is promising, even just that creative team alone, and suggests a lot of fun with some multiversal content. Then in November, the big event is coming. The stuff they've been building up to since the very start of Rebirth appears to be coming to a head with their next event, the Doomsday Clock. Now normally this might leave me a little wary. Two events so right close to each other is a little shaky, but again, they've been building up to this for a long time, and there's some really cool signs from what we know of what DC's told us. The idea is that all the stuff they've been building up with Dr. Manhattan and the Watchmen and this big threat that stole time from the heroes of Earth, it's all apparently being paid off in this story. We know Jeff Johns is taking some time off from his new work within the movie industry to write this comic and a countdown miniseries building up to it. We've learned that Superman and Manhattan's differing views on humanity will clash within this comic, Superman being more optimistic and Dr. Manhattan apparently being a lot more cynical with everything. We know, kind of uniquely, that this event will have no crossovers or tie-ins with any other series. It will be a true standalone miniseries. This is part of the reason why I'm not so worried about there being two events kind of close to each other in proximity. They're doing this one a little different, and it's going to be very easy to read. We also know that the JSA is alive and out there, somewhere, in some form, and is likely involved in all of these events, as is the Legion of Superheroes. Oz, the mysterious man in green who's been messing around with Superman's life, is also up to something, and at this point it's pretty safe to assume that's Ozymandias. Finally, multiple hints suggest that whatever is going on with Dr. Manhattan, there might be another party involved. Someone just referred to as them that we don't really know a lot about, and I think might be the ones that actually stole the time from the older DC heroes. Finally, the button made things perfectly clear. Whatever is going on here is a coordinated strike on the DC universe, planned and executed perfectly to weaken the world of DC for an upcoming invasion or attack of some form. Their first strike was strong, wiping out a lot of DC history and replacing it with the New 52 to leave the heroes at odds with each other, weakened, and without the experience they once had. Then it seems like they wanted to take Batman out of the picture during the events of the button, because it's pretty clear they unsettled him in a very unique way that could only have been done through meeting Thomas Wayne. Looking over this information, I can kind of see the shape of a story forming here, and it really comes down to whether or not Doomsday Clock is the endgame for a lot of this content, or just another chapter in it. Honestly, I'm fine with either. DC has really earned my trust with all of this, and they haven't really said one way or the other, but if they want to go farther with this stuff, as long as it doesn't get dragged out, I feel there's a lot of content they have planned here, and there's more to go from just one more event. What hints I've gathered from DC suggest that Doomsday Clock might be bigger than that. A major revelation for what exactly is going on should definitely be coming in that story. And though it's possible they're going to play a longer game, it might be the time for them to really hit home with this story and then go forward from here. I don't really know which one of the two they're doing. I have a couple of scenarios and theories that have been rummaging around in my mind at this point. Doomsday Clock may feature the heroes butting heads with Dr. Manhattan, only for them to learn at the end of the story that he was only trying to prepare them for another bigger threat coming down the road. That he's the one that's actually been protecting them all this time, and that there's other beings that took time away from the DC universe, captured the JSA and possibly even the Legion, and Dr. Manhattan is trying to recruit heroes to stop this mysterious threat, or something along those lines. That threat could easily be the being behind the events of Multiversity. We know that Justice League Incarnate is still around, so all that stuff's still canon. Or it might be some entirely different villain, new or old, that we just haven't seen or they haven't revealed yet. Alternatively, this whole thing could be part of some grand game between Ozymandias and Dr. Manhattan over the fate of the DC Universe, and that the actions and little hints of what we've seen are their various gambits trying to hold sway over the universe. I don't know, but whatever is going to happen, whatever they are planning, I am robustly optimistic overall. As I've said many times before, and even in this video, DC has earned my faith. I believe they're planning something very fun and cool for us. Whatever they have coming up, it's probably going to be very insightful and entertaining, as the comics they have put out thus far very much are. This faith I have in the company is also why I'm not too worried about them using Watchmen characters. Yeah, I get it. The original story is a classic, but they proved during Before Watchmen that just because Alan Moore isn't involved doesn't mean they can't write a competent or interesting story with these characters. And though I get that The Watchmen is a really good story, I can't see any reason why any of this Rebirth stuff really affects any of that. If anything, it's just interesting. We have this new cast of characters that are very cool characters being brought into the DC story. I am not sure what they're doing with that, but thus far it hasn't been the obvious, and it's been quite entertaining. Jeff Johns may not be the perfect writer, but he's great at the big, broad content that Doomsday Clock promises to be. We'll see, but whatever's going to happen, we're going to cover this in some form or another down the road, so stay tuned for that. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments section below. Has Rebirth's first year lived up to your expectations? What do you think of Marvel Legacy? And what do you want to see out of the Doomsday Clock? I look forward to hearing everyone's thoughts. This video was the winner of this week's Patreon poll. We tried something a little different this week. So thanks to our patrons for picking a cool topic, and as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep reading comics.